What's going on YouTube? We're back at it for another video. Today we're doing the Liurnia Lakes guide, part 2, finally finishing out that area. Then moving on to Altus Plateau is for the next guide coming up. But our starting point is going to be the Academy Gate Town. Now, we've got more than a few things to cover with this one, so let's get straight into it. But from that Lost Grace, we'll need to head back into the Sunken City itself, or the Academy Gate Town. More than a few of those car-wheeling frog people inside of there, so do be aware of that. Can be a bit of a frustrating time, but just inside and over to our left, we will have some magic wreaths to grab up over here. And just past that, a little bit over to the right, we will have a NPC for a side quest line. Now, this won't be one that will further progress his side quest line. We'll meet up with him later at Volcano Manor. Then we'll be able to start up the side quest line for him. This is just more of one of those moments where we meet up with him, get a bit more context, but won't actually have a quest given to us at this point. Just another one of those dialogue pieces that slates into what will come in the future for a better understanding. But just past him, we'll have another of these broken down buildings that you'll notice more than a few of those frog guys up on top of that'll be spitting a bit of that frost damage at you. Do be wary of that. But inside of the chest over here, we'll have another one of those cookbooks to add to our crafting material or crafting inventory, essentially. And just over to the left from that, we'll have a little bit of that, forget the name of it, some type of crafting material. Now, more than a few of those frog guys to deal with. Be on the lookout for them. Sometimes it can be easy. Other times they start cartwheeling straight into you, giving you the bit of that stun lock action. But just over to our right, we'll need to essentially double back, head to the broken down bridge over here, and then we'll have a gazebo over here. Do be aware there's more than a few lobsters just hanging around this that'll start popping up. And if you've dealt with any of the lobsters in this game, you know that's one of the more frustrating enemy types to deal with. No matter what level you are, they can get you stun locked pretty quick, and they do have that ranged attack. Whew, I hate them. But just over to the left of the bridge itself, we'll have another golden rune to grab up. And then essentially what we're going to be doing is doubling back towards that portal that we found at the very end of the first part of or part 1 essentially. Going back over to the eastern wall, going along that until we reach the very bottom, or most southern point, and then jumping over onto the eastern grassy lands, I suppose you could call it. But over here to be a bit misty, it's more than a bit of fog, and we will have some crystals over here. Sadly enough, no loot to be grabbed over here for whatever reason. More than a few of those snails hanging around though, so you can chop those up, possibly get some of that discovery rating up so you can get some more crafting material off them. But we'll keep heading along that left cliffside over here until we meet up with a Lost Grace that will be coming up just shortly here around the corner. We'll need to grab that one up. And then from that point, we'll start heading over to the right and continue down the left cliffside, or eastern cliffside. Now, just up ahead, we're going to have more than a few of those deviled eggs, those gassy little eggs over here. And we'll actually get a summons for them over here. I'd highly suggest just not trying to deal with all that. They can get you stun locked pretty quickly. They'll eat away at that health, and whew. Yeah, it's a quick and painful death. I'm not a fan of it. If you saw anything from the part 1 video, it's one of those moments you just don't want to have to deal with them. But just over to our left, we will have this broken down bridge, which will lead us up to a Lost Grace that we'll need to grab up, but we'll drop back down and continue along that left cliffside face. Now, a couple of lobsters will pop up. Don't even be bothered, trust me, it's not even worth the runes, but we will come up on another gazebo over here, which is going to be completely filled with more of those deviled eggs. Now, do be careful with these. That poison gas that they spit out will start doing some damage over time, as well as just constantly eating away at your health. And if you get trapped in the middle of them, you start getting hit, you're not able to hit back. It can be a detrimental one. But we'll be able to grab up that smithing stone and then keep continuing down that left cliffside until we meet up with these ruins over here, which this is going to be the part 2 of where we meet up with the blind girl. We will need to feed her another one of those SHABRIRI grapes that we found in the part 1 video. Now, you do want to make sure that you exhaust the dialogue with any one of these side quest lines, or side quest characters, I should say. But these NPCs can sometimes get locked into their place if you don't talk to them again after the first dialogue moment, so do be sure to continuously hit that Y button, or whatever your interact button is, to make sure that they progress to the next location. One good way to know whether or not you further progress them is possibly go sit at a Lost of Grace and then see if they're still there, essentially. Now, the portal we just came past is going to be another portal that just essentially brings us back to the Academy or Academy of RAYA LUCARIA's front gates. Had to get in that moment where, speaking about the dialogue, but over to the right of that portal itself, we'll also have another little dungeon where we'll find the third SHABRIRI grape, and that'll be the last one that we'll need to find for the blind girl. We'll be meeting up with her a little bit later on. Now inside of this chest we'll have the 2 fingers heirloom, which will further increase our faith by, I believe, 5. Now from that point we'll need to head back down and keep heading along that eastern side until we make it over to one of those whirlpool jump spots with Tauren, which is going to be over here on our left. And from this location, we'll jump up and immediately be able to grab up another one of those lost graces, and then we'll need to head over to the right, which is going to be one of those broken down paths that we would have seen over by Castle Stormvale that we couldn't get across, but there is going to be a carriage down here that we can get another one of those items from, or weapons, I should say. Now there will be one of the trolls guarding it. One of them, I don't exactly know what happened to the second one, but obviously he's broken his chains from his carriage. But who knows what happened on this side of the map. Now, in the back of that carriage, we will be getting in a polearm, or great spear, I should say, that does actually have holy damage to it. Could be one of those better upgrades if you're early on in game looking for something that's going to have that amplified damage that you wouldn't have from any other type of spear already by this point. I can't remember any of the other ones up to this point actually giving us any type of magic damage or possibly a bit of holy, besides the halberd that we would have gotten from the tree sentinel at the very start of the game. But from that point we'll start heading back along this eastern side over here, essentially going down the main path, just covering the whole eastern portion of Liurnia Lakes. We'll start running into a few of the Carian soldiers, or Carian, I can't remember the pronunciation of it, but there'll be more than a few non-magical enemy types along this way, as well as a mix of those fire monks and some other type of enemy. I can't remember exactly by this point, but we'll need to head over to the right after we get down here. You'll notice there's a little path that we can go down, but first we'll be grabbing the Lost Grace that's just to the left of that along the main path. But from this point, as soon as we get to the Lost Grace, we'll be heading over to the right, and you'll notice we have another one of those statues that's going to be pointing out one of the dungeons just ahead of us. And that'll be down on this path over here. Now, first things first, there are going to be more than a few of those mini-men, those little toy soldier enemy types over here, so do be aware of that. Highly suggest just kind of running by them unless you need the runes. But at the very end, we will have a somber smithing stone. Now, the entrance to the dungeon may be a bit obscure. It's kind of blending in with that cliffside, but it'll be along that left side as you double back. Now, with this lift, about midway through, there is going to be a ledge that we can jump onto. That's why I've slowed it down so much right here. We'll be able to jump over here, grab up another one of those gloveworts. And then we'll be able to easily just jump down. No worries of the fall damage at this point. Luckily enough, it's one of those things you fear all the time, and sadly enough, there is nothing underneath the lift itself. Not too many secrets with some of these dungeons, but here and there we will find a few of those illusionary walls in some of these dungeons. Now just doubling back, or heading around the corner, there'll be more than a few of those imps to deal with. Always can be frustrating hiding around each one of those corners. Another glowwort right there for us to grab up. And I don't believe this one actually had any of the illusionary walls within it, but you'll notice me going across each one of these walls, just trying to find one if there is any, but the secrets on this one are more about jumping over the edge, like with those, or that staircase behind us. But before jumping down to that, we'll be heading through the rest of the dungeon before getting into that portion of it. Now, we'll have a couple of those bigger boys inside of here, so do be aware of that. Those guys can be painstaking when it comes to the stun locks, and they do have a grab ability which can deal some devastating damage. Now, before heading into the Stone Sword Key Room, we do want to take out some of these enemies before heading in there, as we've got two of those imps that are just throwing some of that magic pot explosion type of attack. Can be quite frustrating to deal with, and better off getting it done before looting the rest of the room. Now we will have one of those imps inside of here, along with a new helmet for ourselves that I believe doesn't further increase any of our main attributes, but could be something pretty solid for some of those casters out there, or that's what it looks like to me. And underneath the staircase itself, another rune arc. And from this point, continue on through the dungeon. Do be aware there are a couple of traps in here, but lucky enough, pretty easy to avoid them after we stepped on them. Another glowwort to grab up here. And then over to our right, I'm trying to remember. As you'll notice, I'll be rolling into every single wall possible. A couple more of those imps and inside of here as well. And we will have, yes, Scythe to grab up inside of here. We'll be working with some type of build with these, obviously. It's going to be something that is very worthwhile for me. But over on our left, another golden rune and a glowewort back here. Now from this point, we're going to need to drop down to the staircase below us. You'll notice I go through just about every corner over here. I think I did end up having to cut some of the gameplay footage right here because I just got a bit lost. Completely forgot that I could drop down to the very bottom. And you will notice that we will have a couple of items or weapons dropping from some of those imps as well. You could get another greatsword if you've got higher discovery rating. Yes, it was definitely one of those moments where I couldn't exactly remember where to go, but we'll head along the path and just drop down from that stairway down below us. Now, more than a few glowewort to grab down here and a couple of those bigger boys to deal with, but lucky enough, you got something like the greatsword, we'll be able to stagger that guy quickly, put him down where he needs to, or put him down and make quick work of him. Now we'll have another one of those prattling plates, I believe it's called, even though it looks like PATE, P-A-T-E, I believe. I swear, some of the words in this game just elude me on pronunciation. But another one of those gloweworts over on our right, and down below here, another bigger boy to deal with. They are going to be hitting pretty hard, so be careful if this is your first time coming through. Some of these dungeons may be something that you might want to come back to a little bit later on if you haven't quite leveled yourself up. But at the same time, if you're looking for a bit of punishment with a decent reward to it, it's going to be well worth your while. Now we'll have another old fang on our right, be able to hit the boss lever, and sadly enough, no illusionary walls. But now we'll be doubling back to the boss room itself. Heading back over, I'm trying to remember, I believe this was a shade. Nope, it's going to be another one of those cats. Or watchdogs. I mean, it's a cat, even though I guess you could technically call it a watchdog when it comes to the roots of the ERDTREE, I believe is what's connected to each one of these rooms. But I'll tell you what, the cat is very old by this point. I hate this enemy type or boss. And there are some dungeons later on where that is a common enemy type, so do get ready for that if this is your first time coming through. Lucky enough, we'll get another summons off of that, and then we'll be able to double back up the side of that cliff and head back over to where that Lost Grace is and start heading over to the right or along the main path itself. Now, we've got some nice scenery over here. That was a pretty decent battle. If you've noticed some of those flame cart guys before, it looks like there were some massive ones over here that I kind of wish were possibly some type of mini boss at some point. Would have liked to have seen that. Maybe we'll possibly see it in a DLC later on. But over to our left, or to the left of that little battle scene down there, we'll have a mage that's going to be up on a tower. Extremely frustrating to deal with. More than a few of those ghostly sorcerers getting summoned in. Also have another glintstone cookbook up here. But do be careful as you're coming up through this. This mage up here is very frustrating. Deals some pretty decent damage, but by the end of it, we will get the glint blade staff, which is going to further increase our ability of glint blade itself. I believe the name of it was. I believe it's the one where you pull out a sword or magically pull out a sword and use that as a weapon, costing you that FP. But it's definitely a devastating ability. I've faced off with it a couple of times in PvP, and it's not enjoyable, in my opinion. I don't believe it's gotten nerfed recently, but if somebody's using it properly and the range on that thing is absolutely ridiculous, it can be a formidable ability, especially even with a staff, further increasing its strength. Now, just below that, we'll have another one of the summons of these trolls. Now, I had a fairly rough time dealing with this guy. Wasn't getting my rolls properly, and he does seem to move a bit faster than some of the other trolls, but after we've finished him off, we'll have a couple of items to grab up over here, and then we'll be able to head back on down after we've killed the last of those summons of those sorcerers down there. But we'll head along this main path, and we'll head over to the right, essentially just kind of checking out what's over here, seeing if there's any loot. But over to our left is going to be the third location where we're going to be meeting up with the blind girl herself. More than a few of those white wolves over here. If you know anything about those wolves, they are a bit stronger than the regular ones, so do be aware of that. But this will be the third meeting with the blind girl herself. Now, there's a bit of a trick with this moment when we interact with her. We're going to be giving her another of those SHABRIRI grapes, and then we're going to tell her what the grapes are. Let that be a little bit spoiler for you, and there's a bit of a comedic moment there. But you'll need to head back to the Lost Grace, then talk to her again. That will further progress it. That's what I mean about those moments when you need to exhaust those dialogue lines with some of these NPCs just to make sure that you can actually progress it. Otherwise, if you didn't go rest at the Lost Grace and then go talk to her again, she would stay there and wouldn't progress to the next location. Now, just over to the right from that Lost Grace, we'll have another one of those bears to deal with that, funny enough, is actually just guarding a piece of flesh. He's still as irritating as any other time that we've met him, but lucky enough, we've got the damage this time around, and sometimes we can make quick work of them. Other times, we're getting a bear hug we're just getting drug around like we're Leonardo DiCaprio inside of the, God, I could never remember the name of that movie. But we all remember that bear scene. Getting mauled is no fun. But from that point, we'll head back on through that little battlefield scene and then head over to the right, as this is the portion of it that we're going to be able to progress through the rest of this eastern portion of Liurnia. Now, there'll be another blood clot up here for us to grab up, bit of that crafting material. Then we'll need to head over to the right and continue on our path. Now, just up here, it's going to be more than a few of those white wolves to deal with, so do be aware of that. If you're lower leveled, this is your first time coming through the area, you haven't quite leveled up some of your weapons, these guys might be a bit more troublesome and frustrating than they are for me, but even at my higher level in the new game plus, they're still quite frustrating at times, and wolves seem to evade my attacks a lot, especially while using the great sword itself. Now, just past over here on our left, I can't remember if there was a rune arc over here. I believe there might have been. Yes. No, it's going to be a starlight shard. My apologies. But from that point, you'll notice we have a bit of a swampy area in front of us. We will have a little bit of a mini-boss over here. You'll notice the purple skeleton kind of imitating like death with a trumpet or a horn that somehow seems to use that as a row. But, you know, or what is it? What do they call that? As a paddle. Yes. Yeah. Losing my train of thought on that one. But once we finish him off, we'll be able to get another death root and a summons that is fairly decent. If you get any summons for the skeletons, they will act like every other skeleton you've fought with before. If the enemy type isn't using holy damage, they can resurrect themselves. So even if they do die, as long as they don't get hit again, you'll have the ability to or they'll have the ability to resurrect, essentially. That's what I was looking for. Now, this is one of those moments where I was just kind of exploring, looking for a bit more loot, but we'll need to head back towards the main pathway going across just over to the left of that building, and we'll notice a knight in the middle of the road. Now, this knight will actually drop a prayer book for us. Need to grab that up. I don't know if he drops it every single time, but I remember in the first playthrough, I believe he dropped it also then. I don't have a high discovery rating, so this may be something that's always a drop for you, but that's another spell that we'll be able to get up from some of those sorcery teachers. And just off to the left of that Lost Grace, we'll have another painting to grab up. And from this point, over to our right, just past that, another smithing stone to grab up. Now, we'll have a little bit of a stone structure over here that we'll need to cross in order to get to the other side of the eastern portion of Liurnia. And just ahead of us, over to our right, before we start going into that little encampment over there, we'll need to grab up a Lost Grace and then head further down to the right, as there's a path that's going to fork off to the left and the right. We'll first go to the left in order to get up the, or get the Ansel River well. Now, we'll be guarded by one of those giant stone guys, the iron giants, if you will. Not too hard to take them down, just kind of go for those ankles. Find the weak spot on him. Generally, the rest of the stony structure around him isn't going to be hit as hard, but after we defeat him, we'll be able to head down this lift and get into the Ansel River itself. We'll just be grabbing up the Lost Grace over here. I do have another guide for the Ansel River as well. I'll leave that link down in the description for anybody that's looking to get a bit more exploration out of that, or possibly looking to see if they've missed anything while they're down there. But then we'll head back up the lift And just behind the Ansel River well itself, there will be one more item that we'll need to grab up. I believe it's a stone sword key. It'll be in the very back portion of the right. Now there will be one of those, what do we call this? Some type of magic shooting ball of faces. I can't even come up with the name, but something like that, and I can't remember what the legitimate name is for it, but it can be quite frustrating, but lucky enough we'll be able to make quick work out of that one. But then we'll be able to grab up that stone sword key and then double back and then be heading towards the right portion of the fork in the road, essentially. Pretty much a crossroads in a way, but without the four-way stop. Now from this portion we will be running into a couple of those fire monk enemies. Do be aware that one with the mace is going to be very problematic at times. If you get stuck inside of that fire, it can be a frustrating stun lock, but lucky enough we'll be able to make quick work out of those as well. Now we can jump over to our right, but as you'll notice we've already grabbed up the Lost Grace over there as we're heading along that eastern side, down below that cliffside. And then from this point, just over to the right, along that right cliffside, we will have another scarab that's going to give us a somber smithing stone. And just back here, a couple of crafting material, but nothing too much of importance. Now we'll grab up the Lost Grace inside of the Carian study hall. But from that point, we'll need to head back to the Lost Grace that we grabbed up at that painter's or artist's shack. I can't remember the name of it, as I thought there was going to be a connecting point for the village down here just off to the left of that study hall, but it turns out the only way to get down here is to jump down from this location. Now, when we get down here, there is an NPC that we can talk to for a side quest line that, sadly enough, did not spawn for me for whatever reason. The front of the building where he's at, he did not spawn for me. I could hear him, but I believe it may be because I started attacking the pots. But he'll be just below this building that we're on top of. So if you want to go for that side quest line, jump down, go to the front of that building and talk to him. Don't start killing the pots straight away. I believe that may be one of the issues, but even when I went to the Church of Vows, I was not able to use the Celestial Dew. I tried coming back to the location, he wasn't there for me. I read a bit online, and that was kind of the consensus, apparently, of what happened. If you know anything about this, let me know down in the comments. I'll be able to pin that and let some other people know it. So I know, as a part of the side quest line, we're supposed to be gathering some of these flowers and crafting material over here in order to give that to him as a part of that side quest line, but for whatever reason, he just didn't spawn for me, and I believe it may be because I just came in here and started slaughtering every pot I saw. Which, to be fair, I mean, how many times have you ever come across any friendly pot inside of this game? I don't imagine you'd probably come down here and immediately they wouldn't be hostile, but apparently that's the way it goes. I mean, there's far and few times we find anybody that's a friendly NPC, especially one that's a very common enemy, besides the one giant pot, I can't remember his name, that helps us with the Radon fight. But he'll be in front of that building. Hopefully, you didn't roll in and just start slaughtering everything. But from that point, we'll head back to the Carian study hall. And over there on the right, there is a little podium that we will need to place an hourglass item that we will get from the Lady Ronnie questline. But inside of here, there is a very frustrating NPC that we'll have to fight with. Very similar, or what looks very similar to a lot of those invasion-type enemies, but this will be a sort of mini-boss. You'll notice he consistently starts teleporting, and I'd highly suggest just going straight for him. His magic ability of the arrow, that's very similar to that of the Ancestral Warriors, can be quite devastating, and I took quite a lot of time facing off with this guy the first time through, but lucky enough in New Game Plus, we're able to trash him like he trashed us in the first time coming through. Now, once we get to this room over here, he's going to constantly be teleporting forward. Occasionally, you'll be able to get close enough to attack him, but your best bet, because at some point, as soon as you get him to a certain point in his health bar, he will consistently just keep going forward, and if you're a melee player like me, he's just going to keep teleporting around that room, so you'll need to take that ladder back there on the left, get up on top, and then walk over to his position, drop down, and be able to finish him off like that. Now, there'll be a few more of those summons that'll be coming up here and there. You'll be able to make quick work out of those guys, but he's going to be the main irritation in this area. And once you come back here, you will have to fight him again, but in a different type of setting. I'll leave that spoiler-free right there for the Lady Ronnie side quest line, as that's a part of it. And it's pretty interesting when you come back through here with that specific item that you'll get through that side quest line. But up here on top of this, these beams over here, we'll have another talisman that we'll be able to gain. That's going to boost the amount of FP that we'll gain back from our flasks. I can't remember, cerulean. I can never remember the names of them, but our FP flask, or blue flask, if you will. Now there is one more item that we'll need to grab of, and it's close to the front door. Just off to the right, it's going to be that golden rune. Obviously not something necessarily really have to go back for, considering from this point we just need to be heading back to that lost grace that we found just before the fork in the road. But I believe we'll be, I can't remember if I fast traveled or not. No, we'll be riding back on horseback all the way back there. Probably be a bit easier to just go back to that lost grace point, but I try to keep it as seamless as possible. You know, few cuts as possible. Probably could have cut down a little bit of time by just fast traveling over there, but besides the point, we'll head back to the lost grace, you know, replenish up on our health and flasks, and then we'll start heading forward. We'll be dealing with a few more of those fire monks, as well as one of those fire carts. I don't even know what to call these guys, the flame heads. Still, one of the more irritating enemies to deal with inside of this game. It is absolutely frustrating to try and get that hitbox on that character at the very behind of it. Simply, as long as you're able to just hit that guy in the back, that's going to be the quickest way to kill him. Now, there is some type of way to jump up on top of him and do some type of execution move. I've tried it several times. I've seen some video on it, and even the people that did get it accomplished did not say it was something that was very easy to get done, and it's very tricky to kind of get the angle to properly get that done. Probably a good idea to look it up. I've yet to be able to actually accomplish that feat, but it's something that would be something I'd like to do at least once, just to get that execution on him, make that thing quick, and just watch it blow up. It's pretty cool looking, but from that point, we'll be able to head over here to the left, which is going to be the Church of Vows. This will also be another sorcerer turtle, the Pope turtle. That's what I've named him. I don't remember his real name, but Pope turtle. And then right next to Pope turtle, over here on the right, we've got the, I can't remember the name of this. It's some type of absolution. I can't remember how you call it. We'll take celestial dues to that point, though, and then be able to atone ourselves of our sins, which would account for possibly angering some of the NPCs, or making them hostile, or possibly killing some of those NPCs. It definitely doesn't replenish every NPC in the game, but it's one of those that can save you in certain side quests or certain moments, like which I've had previously, where I decided to kill Selin inside of her little dungeon when I found her, because she wouldn't talk to me. So I thought, why not? Let's just kill her. I don't know why that came to mind, but lucky enough, we were able to head back to that, put the celestial due in, and complete that side quest line. Now, from this point, we'll be able to head over to the left. There's a little bit of items that we can grab up over there that's mostly crafting material, but we'll need to dive a little bit deeper over to the right. It'll get a bit wooded area, and you'll notice you're in the right spot when you'll notice there's a few more of those ancestral warriors. Now, do be careful with these guys. If you've faced off with them before down in the Schiefer River, their arrows can be quite devastating, and even with a leveled up character with absolute solid armor or that fat boy gear, it's still going to be a heavy hitter. And as you'll notice from the gameplay footage, I come close to death right there. Ooh, that'd be a frustrating, rage-fueled moment right there. But just across that statue, we'll be able to grab up our next lost grace, and from this point, we'll start heading a little bit over to the right side. It can be a bit of a disorienting area, but lucky enough, we'll be able to kind of just head over to this right cliffside over here and kind of walk our way down all the way through from this point. Not much loot to gain inside of this area, but yeah, I could definitely see some people kind of getting turned around in this little wooded section right here. But we'll keep close by the right cliffside over here, as there's going to be a dungeon that we'll need to walk on down to just at the end of this path up along this way with all these jellyfish going down, and you'll know you'll be at the right spot as soon as we meet up with one of these holy spectral warriors over here. Quite the frustrating enemy type to deal with, considering he's constantly teleporting all over the area. You may have dealt with some of these guys before if you reach the dungeon outside of or inside of the Radon boss fight area, but we'll be at the Black Knife Catacombs. And there's actually going to be two bosses within this dungeon. One of them is going to give us a side quest item that I believe correlates with the the Fia's side quest line. Now we'll also have a Glowewort over on the right. Now the skeletons, the first two that we'll meet just in this area, they'll have a bit of a black smoke as soon as you fully deplete their health bar, and then they'll reanimate themselves and continuously do that. We'll need to hit their summoner, I suppose is what this guy would be called. Another one of those wooden mixtape guys. As soon as we kill him, immediately they'll just drop to their bones, and this will happen even if you haven't destroyed those skeletons before. But inside of this Stone Sword key room, we'll have another axe that we'll be able to grab up over here. I believe this one actually did magic damage. We'll be showcasing that here in a moment. Yes, correct. Could be one of those solid axes, possibly if you're going for one of those caster melee builds, really working with that intellect. Could be a powerful combo. Now we'll have a couple of archers in there, but we can just roll straight on by those guys. But we'll have to come back and take them out a little bit later on in order to make it to our next zone without dying as we get up to it. Now there'll be a couple of gloveworts down here that we'll need to grab up. And do be aware, anytime you see some of those smaller crabs, there's going to be a bigger crab lurking just below the surface, ready to snap you in half and just frustrate you to no end. But a couple of gloveworts to find from that as well. And just over here to our left, I believe, is another, it's going to be a rune arc. Now I went through and hit every single one of these walls, sadly enough. There is no illusionary walls within this little area. But lucky enough, we're able to make quick work out of that next bigger boy crab. Take out a bit of its offspring so we don't have to deal with a lot more of them later on. Quite frustrating. Gonna need to exterminate that bunch real quick. Now we'll need to head back to the room with the falling blades, and we'll need to ride one of those blades up to the top. Now do be aware there is going to be a skeleton at the top that will be slinging some magic at you, but lucky enough we'll be able to make quick work out of him by taking down his summoner. And in this next room there will be another summoner off to our left that will actually take out all three of them. Makes it just so much easier to deal with some of these skeletons. I almost wish every single skeleton just had one enemy type like that, so I could just easily take one of them out and then be done. But at the end of that last room, before we drop down back into the waters below with the crabs, we'll have an illusionary wall that leads us to the Black Knife Assassin. Now this guy can be quite frustrating, but he is pretty squishy, but very fast. Can deal some heavy damage at certain times. But as long as you get that stagger on him, you'll be able to make quick work out of him. Now we'll also get the Black Knife print. That's going to be the item that's for the Fia's questline, I believe. And then the Assassin's Cerulean Dagger. And then from that point, we'll need to head back to the other room, drop down into that left little opening, and we'll be able to open up the boss room itself. Now there'll be a couple of skeletons we'll have to deal with inside of here, and or if you respawn like I did, there will be those two crabs popping up as well. Be ready for that as you come through the gate. Unless you've already defeated them and did not die inside of the Blades room. Hopefully that's the case for you. But from this point, we'll double back and head back to that boss room. Now inside of here, we've just got another one of those shades. These guys are really squishy, easy to take down as fast as possible. Takes not too many hits, but also on the right, I believe we're getting another, yeah, that's right, we're going to have another death root to feed over to the Beast Clergyman. Get a few more of those abilities out of him. But from that point, we'll spawn back at the entrance of the dungeon itself and head back over to the right. We'll be, this time, going along the right cliffside over here up to this statue, and then be able to jump down from this point and take down this next bell tower turtle, which is going to be another one of those locations where we'll be able to duplicate some of those remembrances. Now, lucky enough, that one is pretty quick. It only takes a couple of swings on some of those crushed up skeletons on the bottom of it. But crazy enough, we will have, I believe there's 3 inside of this zone, so there's more than a few spots for you to duplicate some of these remembrances early on if you're looking for some of those upgrades or some of those abilities from some of those previous bosses that we've defeated. Or maybe in late game you didn't come back to these, but you needed both of the items that you could get from one of those remembrances. So this would be an excellent spot to just have those ready for yourself and then hit that Lost Grace and head on over. Now we'll have more than a few of the wolves and ancestral warriors as we progress forward, and I believe up here on the right, as long as we're going to need to hug this left side, as there's going to be a scarab coming up here shortly that's just over to our left, kind of hidden in the bushes. I believe it's going to be just on our right now, Yep, it's going to be hidden right over here. I believe it's another somber smithing stone. Boom, we've got it. Now just over here, yet again, we've got another one of those bell tower turtles. This one, almost as easy as the first one. Takes a few more hits to some of those crushed up skeletons on the side. And then we'll have him down in no time. Now over to our right, we will have a Lost Grace. You'll want to grab this up as we'll be facing off with another one of those minor ERDTREE champions. That will be coming up shortly just over to our left. And there'll be more than a few of those ancestral warriors just over here. So if you don't want to deal with those guys again, you can just hug that left side until you make it all the way over to the ERDTREE champion himself. Now, another one that's a bit easier, but still can slam you down in that comical cartoon manner of just pushing you into the ground with that giant staff that he has. Not sure what to call it, actually. But we'll get the magic shrouding cracked tier. We'll get the flame tier. No, not the flame tier. I let this go on for a bit longer, but we've got the lightning shrouding cracked tier, and I believe it's the holy shrouding. Yes, that's going to be the third one. We'll actually get 3 cracked tiers out of this guy. That could help you with some of those damage buffs to any of those separate damage types that you may have. Now, from this point, we'll need to head back to... Yes, that's correct. We'll need to head back to the front entrance of the Academy of RAYA LUCARIA. Head through that gate. If you haven't grabbed up the Lost Grape, grab that up now. We already had the Academy Glintstone key from the Part 1 video. And then just over to our right, we'll need to hit the little floating sigil right there. And then get across that bridge. Going to make it a bit easier for us. Just a lot better seamless way to come down here instead of trying to jump down or make that platforming moment where we have to come all the way down some of those tombstones on the side of the cliff face over here that was just below us in that area. Now, I go over to the right for a bit here, but there's not really much on the right. We'll be kind of hugging the left side. We'll just double back all the way until it's the left cliff side over here. Now, there will be a couple of horseback riders over here, little knights. Lucky enough, able to make quick work out of them. And over here is just another one of those moments where I was exploring a bit, looking if there was any loot I possibly missed the first time through, or if there was anything over here as well. Trying to make as few cuts as possible, but make it easy to follow the guide itself and where I'm going. But just over here to our right, we will have another one of those Carian knights. Some of them do have some magical abilities to them, so do be aware of that. It can be a bit frustrating at times. But just over here, that we'll have another church that we'll be able to get to, which is going to have a Lost Grace in it, and it will also have the second to last portion of the side quest line for the blind girl. We'll need to talk to her again, and she'll be asking for something a bit different from the SHABRIRI grapes that she was asking for previously. I'll let you, or you'll understand why from the third portion of her side quest line, and I'll let that be a spoiler-free moment. That's definitely something that will be quite enjoyed by some of those people that enjoy dark humor. You'll understand what I mean if you've already been through that third portion. But from that point, we'll just exhaust her dialogue, but we'll actually be getting the next item that she'll require just up ahead of us as we progress a little bit further into this area over here. Now we'll have to deal with more than a few enemies over here, so do be well aware of that. We've got the Flame Head, we've got the Carian Knight with the magic abilities, a bunch of the Carian soldiers surrounding it. It really does get to be one of those frustrating moments. I'd highly suggest just kiting the Knight away, taking him on by yourself, being able to easily avoid getting trapped in with the stun lock of that Flame Head. It can just be absolutely frustrating. But over here to our left, we will have a couple more knights to deal with and a few more of those Carian soldiers. And if you took the main path going all the way up, you'll notice we've got some of those trebuchets over here. They will be slinging some of those rocks at you. So it's a lot easier, or a lot better off if you head down that left path and then be able to get up behind them instead of having to deal with that, even though more than likely just riding on horseback would probably be pretty easy to avoid that damage. But over here on the right, we will have the Great Mace, or Great Hammer, if you will. Decent little mace weapon if you're looking for something that's dual wielding, or possibly another weapon to dual wield with, possibly putting that in the left hand, having a katana in the right. I've thought about toying around with it. Don't know whether or not it's something of a powerful combo, but I'm going to be looking into that here in a little bit in the future. Trying to do some build guides on that just a little bit later on. Now from this point, over here on the right, or technically our left from where we're viewing right now, we'll have some steps leading up here. There's going to be an item on our left. This is actually going to be the Lift of Dectus. Decta, I believe that's the name of it. We'll have a Lost Grace to grab up over on our right. Now, I didn't have the other half to this medallion since I hadn't been through Caelid already. You will get the first half of this medallion over at the fort in Limgrave, and then the other half will be at a further off, similar fort that's off to the northeastern portion of Caelid. I'll have that in my Caelid guide if you'd like to check that out. Come through the channel. I'll put it down. I'll link it down in the description down below. I'll have all of these items time-stamped in each one of those videos as well, so you can quickly just make your way over to that. But from that point, we'll need to head up over to that rock structure on our right. We'll be dealing with more than a few of those frenzied mad flame enemy types. Just about every enemy type over here is going to be consumed by the frenzied flame, and over on our right there will be a tower that, if we get in the eyeline side of it, is going to have some type of frenzied flame ability that looks very similar to the Eye of Mordor. If you're in that eye line of sight, it is going to build up the madness on you, and it may not be an instant death, but it could deal some serious damage to you, cause a lot of frustration. Lucky enough, though, we will be able to keep out of that line of sight and make our way up to the tower. Now, if you're just underneath it as you're climbing up, it will do a little bit of that buildup of the madness frenzy flame on you, so do make sure you don't have too much as you're coming up, or make sure that you climb up as it's not emitting its frenzied flame aura. And then we'll be able to take out the enemy, or I guess the, what to call them, the frenzy monks, the ones that are casting the ability. But as soon as we do end up killing them, we will not have to deal with that frenzy flame ability anymore, lucky enough. That'll just be gone from now on, so we'll be able to move as freely as we'd like to through this area from that point. And we'll get that nice little frenzied flame ability from it. Now over here on our left is going to be another one of those giant trolls that is going to be like the Carian Knights. And we'll have a rise over here that has a very specific gesture and item that we'll need to use in order to open up this seal over on our left. Now, I don't remember the name of it. I can barely see the text right here, but on screen you'll be able to see it. It's the one I'm using right now on our right. Now, you will get this gesture from progressing the side quest line of the guy at the very first church that we meet outside of, or at the beginning of Limgrave. We talked with him at the beginning of the part 1 video, and essentially we'll need to head into the Academy of RAYA LUCARIA in order to complete that side quest line, as he's asking for an Academy Glintstone key. As soon as you get that back to him, then he'll give you this gesture. Now, there are also going to be some of these Glintstone crowns that we'll find inside of that Academy as well. We'll need to wear one of those and use the gesture in order to open up this seal. This is about the only location that I've had any moment like this where a gesture is actually opening things up, or as well just combining it with an item to get something like that open. So maybe we kind of look at some of the other things inside of the game where there may possibly be another location where this could be a hidden secret. It's going to take some time for a lot of people to find these, and if I do find any more like this, I'll be sure to make a video on it as soon as I find it. But that's how we're going to get up inside of this rise, and then we actually get two very unique spell abilities that are going to be for some of those casters out there that may be looking for a little bit more of that melee type of cast ability. That glacial hammer, I can't remember if that was the name of it. The one that was a hammer spell is quite devastating. I've had that used on me in PvP, and it's a heavy hitter, I can tell you that. But from that point, we'll exit that rise and head over to our left, and we'll be in some type of Frenzied Flame village. All the people inside of here are cursed or madnessed into that Frenzy Flame, and flaming eyes, flame abilities as well, so do be aware that some of them will be casting some spells or possibly shooting flames out of their eyes like they're Cyclops from X-Men, or like they're a limp version of Cyclops from X-Men. But just after you defeat them, we'll also get SHABRIRI's Woe Talisman, which is actually going to aggro all the enemies towards you that are around you. I believe that may be something that could be beneficial for some of those people that are playing co-op. Maybe they've got a friend that's not exactly all that strong and you want to aggro all the enemies towards you. Would be a nice little item to throw on and help out your buddy as you're progressing through the game, so they can enjoy it. But just up ahead, up to the right on this hilltop over here, we will have another one of those invasion moments. And from this guy, we'll actually get the fingerprint grape, which is going to help us progress that blind girl's quest line, and we'll get Varre'S War Spear, which does have some fire damage to it, and I believe blood loss to it. That's a pretty solid weapon right there. Would highly recommend actually leveling that one up and using it if you're somebody that uses the pole arm as a main weapon. Now on our left, we will have a maiden that has been slaughtered, and we'll get her outfit from her. If you're looking to look like a maiden, would be kind of funny if you're kind of playing that character if you're in a co-op game with some buddies. Just a comedic moment right there. But over to our right, or we'll head down the hill, and then over to our right, we'll have another flame or frenzied flame ability from that scarab just in front of us, and a few more of those rats to deal with. And just down below here, I believe we're going to have another graveyard over to our right. Or was it to our left? I'm trying to remember specifically if this was the right location. Yes. Over to our left, we'll have another graveyard filled with some of those golden runes. You can never have too many of them, but we will have a lot of these giant plants that will be spitting out some of that madness buildup on us. Now over to our right, this is going to be the cliffside just above where we were before, which is going to be with those bell tower churches, or bell tower turtles, I should say. Getting lost in the words here. But we'll also be able to ride along that right ledge and then jump down to grab that stone sword key. But from that point, we'll head back to the Bellum Church and we'll talk to the blind girl again. We'll further progress that side quest line from this point. Now, this is going to be the last time that we'll meet up with her inside of Liurnia Lakes. If you want to get to the fruition, her side quest line, the very end of it, there'll be one more step that we'll have to go through, which is going to be another type of ending. We'll meet up with the a certain NPC in the game that will give us an ending that most consider to be the worst ending in the game. But if you're looking to get a new ending and possibly do something along those lines, you'll need to meet up with her down in the sewers of Lindell. I have a guide on that. It's going to be my part 1 of the Lindell capital city. I'll have that link down in the description, and I don't have the location itself within that guide, but all you'll need to do is as soon as you meet up with Moog down in the very lower portion of those sewers, there'll be a chest, and just behind that an altar. You'll just need to hit that. It'll open up a new area, and from that point you'll be able to dive down and meet up with her again to bring that side quest to completion. But from that point, we'll also have that vendor back there. Goodness, had to get all that out, guys. But we're coming up on the end of the Liurnia Lakes area. Down here, there's going to be a bunch of those giant deviled eggs over here that just spitting gas everywhere. And we will have another golden seed over here. And if we follow along the left side, we'll also have another scarab to destroy over here that's going to give us another type of Ash of War ability that's very similar to that of the roar that we'll see from some of those larger, bigger boy bears and some of the trolls that we've fought with, or giants, in the past. Now, you don't have to take out most of these giant deviled eggs over here. They just, I feel they're more scenery in my opinion. I just kind of leave them there. They're really not a big bother to me. But from that point, we'll head to that Lost Grace, and just to the left of it, we'll have a ladder. Now, this is going to be the second route that we'll be able to head into the Altus Plateau. The first one would have been that lift of Dectus, but if you don't have that medallion, this is the route that you'll need to take in order to get up through there. And if some people actually went through the Dectus lift, they would have missed out on quite a bit of loot by going, or by missing out on this area, with another boss as well that they would have missed. That's going to give us, well, we'll see here, coming up here in a bit. Now inside of here, there will be a bit of those mini-men, those little toy soldiers, and they've got more than a few of those gas traps sitting around, so do be aware of that. But inside of here, always check the walls. We're going to be looking for some of those smithing stones that sometimes just kind of blend in with the area. But lucky enough, most of the walls are kind of on that green glintstone glow, so it's a bit easier to notice them. Now we'll just take that lift on up. Now there was nothing below the lift, so don't even worry about that. I already checked that previously. Now from this point, you could just jump on down right there, but sadly, there's only a golden rune that you'll grab up just below it. And through here, we'll have more than a few of those miners to deal with inside of here. And then over to our right, I believe there's a couple of those mini-men. Those little toy soldiers can be extremely frustrating enemy types to deal with in certain moments, especially when it comes to just trying to hit them. I generally don't lock onto them. Best way is to arguably lock onto them just to make sure that your character is going to hit them. But a lot of times with the lock on in this game, I feel it disorients my view inside of the game. If something's coming from behind me, it essentially just doesn't always work that well for me, so I generally just avoid using it a lot of times, unless in certain instances like that, which I should remind myself to do, and it'll just make my life a whole lot easier. But from this point, just before heading up those stairs, over to our left we'll be able to drop down and grab up another one of those somber smithing stones, and riding along this path, head over to the ladder, head on up, and over to our right is the location that we would have come up through. There will also be another golden rune over here. Going to be more than a few of those bats to deal with down here, so be aware of that. Over to the right we'll have another one of those smithing stones to grab up. Now just over here we'll have another one of those bigger boy bats, the ones that sing just at the very other end, so be prepared for that. Those can be a quite the frustrating enemy type to deal with. Now over to our left, I don't believe there was any item over here, but I did go ahead and check over there. Now over to our right we will have another 2 of those smithing stones, and now we will have aggroed every bit of the bats and that bigger boy bat that just loves to sing. Now, one thing to note about those bats that do sing, there is some lore to the context of the translation of some of those songs. I know some people have went out of their way and translated that. I'd highly suggest looking that up if you're looking to really get a bit more in-depth with the lore itself. Their songs apparently, not sure if there's multiple versions of the song as well. I haven't really looked into it too much myself, but I know I've heard from other people that other people have translated this. And it's one of those things that I kind of like to highlight for some of those people that may not have known about this and just want a little bit more out of the game than they possibly knew was already there. But from that point, we'll continue on, grab up that smithing stone, and then over to our right, you'll notice there is a land squid over there. We're not going to head over there just yet, but there is an item that we'll need to grab up over there. First, we'll need to take out that singing bigger boy bat. There's actually going to be 2 of them. These have a bit more abilities than the first one that we dealt with, but over on the right, another one of those smithing stones. Now what we're going to do before we head over to that land squid over there is grab the lost grace at the top of this lift. That way, just in case you do go over there and you end up dying, you don't have to go all the way back and deal with all of those bats all over again. This way, you'll be able to just take that lift down, take out those 2 bats, and then progress over to the land squids, instead of having to climb everything and come all the way back. I had that happen to me a few times the first time through the game, and it can be quite frustrating to make some of those long treks and go through all those enemies all over again just to get back to possibly dying again, and just have that long journey all the way back. But lucky enough, we'll be able to make quick work out of these land squids. You always want to make sure that you're on the left or right side of them and just keep staggering them and make sure that you get that final blow from the front. But we'll have the Serpent's God curved sword over here. Not exactly the worst weapon, but it doesn't have anything that really shines about it other than it being one of those dual-handed melee weapons. Or what I would suggest you would dual-handed. Now from that point, we'll be heading back over to that lift over there. Now there is going to be an item just over to our left, just below that little platform that we were on. I'll have the gameplay footage right here. If you've come back up the lift, trust me, I had the same moment happen to me. I completely forgot about this item from the first time I came through, but lucky enough, we grabbed it up before. We make those double-check looks all around, trying to look for anything extra. It always comes in handy in making sure that we clear that area properly. Now, just beyond that lost grace, we will have a Magma Wyrm inside of here, so get prepared for that. I actually did have a little bit of trouble with this one. If you haven't faced these guys before, do avoid the magma that is on the ground. That is going to be a staggering and slowing effect to you, and it will also be dealing some pretty hefty damage, and at some point midway through the fight he will spit the magma on his weapon, so you really want to avoid that. He's just going to have that amplified damage to the weapon anytime that he strikes you from that point. But lucky enough, we should be able to get up just underneath him, take him down fairly easy, and we will get the Magma Wyrm's scale sword that actually does have fire damage to it as well. I might try to make a dual wield build out of that a little bit later on, but one thing to note, I absolutely hate people that do this. If you've seen this before and you don't know how to activate these lost graces, that people just frustratingly right over the top of it and you can't get to it, there is a workaround for it. If you go out a couple of feet from that lost grace, you will be able to activate it instead of being stuck with one of those moments where you can't actually activate it. I hate people like that. It's very frustrating. I've had it in many loot chests as well. Don't do that. It's absolutely frustrating. But lucky enough, we can get the workaround on that moment like that. But this will be the Altus Plateau. We'll be finally in this area. We'll grab up that Lost Grace. This will be the starting point for my next video. I believe in one video I will be able to cover all of Altus Plateau. But there's one thing more that we need to do in Liurnia, which is the White Mask side quest line. Now we'll need to head to this Lost Grace over here and then take ourselves over to what I like to call the Blood Church. It's one of those churches that I guess has been overtaken for the Mogwin dynasty, and we'll have the White Mask guy out in front of it. He'll talk a bit more about that, but as soon as we talk to him, after you've talked to the two fingers, he'll ask you about what you think of them. We'll need to say that we're not too sure about them. He'll say with great delight that, oh, I knew you were somebody that would be of interest. He'll give you 5 bloody fingers, and then we'll need to deal with or invade 3 different players. Now, win or lose, you will complete this portion of the side quest. You just have to do it 3 times. And I can confirm that if you lose all 3 times, you still progress the side quest line. And, I'm not too happy about admitting that. I'm not too happy about showing the footage from that, but I thought everybody deserved a pretty decent laugh, considering invasions are a lot different from duels, and let's just say magic abilities are completely overpowered in this game, and melee feels like it gets the short end of the stick. But you'll even notice in some of these moments what I say about the, you feel like you're having a good 1-to-1 fight, and then out of nowhere, I just don't even know what happens in this game. Sometimes some of these abilities are just beyond overpowered, but thankfully enough, they focused more on the single-player aspect of the game, and I'm not too worried about PvP being that balanced. That's something that they can update and balance a little bit later on. But we'll head back to the White Mask guy after we've done with those 3 invasions. He'll give us a white cloth, and we'll need to take it back to that church that we found the dead maiden at. Now, from that point, we'll need to cover that cloth in her blood and then bring it back to the White Mask guy. And then we'll be able to, some dark things happen at that point, but we will get an item that is almost like an infinite bloody finger. It's technically our bloody finger, I should say. As you'll notice, we'll offer our finger up to him. He'll tell us to bite down, and off goes the finger. Dark. But he'll also give us a item that is actually something that we can use in order to portal to the Mogwin Palace. Now, there is only one other way to get to the Mogwin Palace, which is through the consecrated snowfields, but this is a fast way to get it. Over there on the right on that body, we will be grabbing up the map for this area. Now, I've already done a full-on guide for this area. I'll have that link down in the description. You may notice I pick up a few items as we're going along, but essentially we're going to just be pushing on until we make it to the final portion of the White Mask side quest line. Now, up here on the hill, there's going to be a lot of these blood loss type of enemies. Some of them will explode. You can technically just run on through. Only some of them will charge and then explode with a mist of that. Each time that you kill them as well, they'll explode with a blood loss mist that can possibly hit you. This can be some devastating damage, essentially. And this is going to be an in-game area, so if this is your first time coming through, do be aware of that. You may want to level up before going into this zone, but if you're looking to find a quick way to grab up one of the last crafting materials, you'll need to fully upgrade one of those weapons that requires Somber Ancient Dragons, or that's going to be at the Somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone. There'll be one at the end of this path after we complete the side quest line. Now, just at this very entrance, or exit over here, there will be some red text on the ground. We'll need to activate that and then head back into the caves that we just came from. For whatever reason, like some of the other moments that we have with these invasion type enemies, he doesn't seem to spawn immediately in front of us. He'll be hiding inside of this area. Now, he's a bit tanky. He will take some hits and he will be able to heal himself, and he can deal some devastating damage. He will have that blood loss ability with his weapon. But lucky enough, and also the blood flies, which can be extremely frustrating, but they have nerfed it recently, so it's not as painful as it was before. But after we defeat him, it'll portal us back, and we'll need to talk to him on the ground. He'll make a whole bunch of whiny statements, but we'll also get the unique weapon from him, which is actually a bouquet of flowers. Quite interesting. That's considered a hammer, I believe. Haven't fully upgraded this. It does have a special ability to it when you hit the left trigger. Can't remember specifically what it does, but you'll be able to see that once you've grabbed it up. I know I can't use it because I don't have enough arcane to actually use this weapon, but it does have blood loss to it and could be something that would be an interesting PvP build in my opinion, or possibly just, you know, I might come back, make a build, and try to complete the entire game and do a video like that. I know a lot of people have been doing that recently. Let's see if we can complete the game just using Varre'S bouquet. But we'll grab up that Lost Grace, and just over to our right, we're going to have a ton of these frog people that are going to be the blood type. They'll actually have spikes coming out of them before they do the cartwheel in certain moments. They're very devastating, but if you make it through all of these enemies, and as you'll notice, it's quite devastating damage. This new game plus, I think I'm level 170. These guys can actually make quick work out of me. This is a very dangerous zone. It's why I highly advise if this is your first playthrough coming through, be aware of that. But if you make it through those enemies, and then you get behind them and get to the chest, you'll get the Somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone, which is the highest level of crafting material that you'll need to fully upgrade one of those weapons that requires the Somber Dragon Smithing Stones. Goodness, quite the mouthful there. But that's going to be the finishing of the Liurnia guides, part 2. Hopefully you've enjoyed, guys. Hopefully this has helped you out. If you'd like to see some of this content live, hit that link down in the description. Follow me over at Twitch, and if you'd like to see more content like this, or if you'd like to also see me finish that game, or finish the entire game with just that bouquet, let me know down in the comments, and also subscribe just to see more of this content. But on that note, hopefully you've enjoyed, and have a good one.